All right, let's just jump right in. We're about to talk about one of the weirdest, truly bizarre and deadliest disasters in all of American history. And it happened right in Boston. But this wasn't a fire, it wasn't an earthquake. Nope, this was caused by molasses. Yeah, you heard me right.
So I want you to just picture a tsunami for a second. Got it? Okay, now throw out the water, replace it with a giant wave of hot, thick, sticky sludge. A wave that weighs way more than water, just barreling through a major American city. And believe me, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. This really, truly happened. And how big was this wave? Well, the initial blast was a staggering 25 feet high. Think about that. That's taller than a two-story building. Just a massive, towering wall of dark, gooey syrup. And this thing wasn't slow, not at all. It came crashing through Boston's North End at something like 35 miles per hour. You couldn't outrun it. There was just no time to even think, let alone get away. So what was the human cost of this freak event? 21 people died, and not just people, dozens of animals too. They were either crushed or just suffocated by this unbelievable force, a force that really was unleashed by pure human carelessness. So you're probably asking, how in the world does this even happen? Well, it all goes back to the tank itself. You see, this was no random act of God. This was a ticking time bomb, one that had been sitting in plain sight for years. This bomb was this gigantic steel tank. We're talking 50 feet high, smack in the middle of a busy area on Commercial Street. And inside, 2.3 million gallons of molasses. Now, you might wonder, why so much molasses? Well, it was used to make industrial alcohol, which was a super important ingredient for making munitions for World War I. And here's where the story gets really crazy. The danger signs were so obvious, it's almost unbelievable. The tank wasn't just sitting there quietly. Oh no. People who lived nearby said they could hear it groaning and screeching at night from the pressure. And get this, it leaked so badly that kids in the neighborhood would literally show up with cups to scoop up the free molasses dripping down the sides. I mean, the warning signs could not have been more clear. So what does the company in charge, United States Industrial Alcohol, do about all these terrifying sounds and obvious leaks? Do they, drain the tank, fix the seams, reinforce it? Nope. Their big solution was, wait for it, to paint the tank brown. Yep, they painted it brown so people wouldn't see the dark streaks of molasses leaking out. That was it. Just cover it up and pretend it's fine. Okay, so you've got this dangerously flawed tank filled to the absolute brim and a company that's actively ignoring every single warning sign. The stage was perfectly set for what happened on January 15th, 1919. So, on that day, January 15th, something weird happened with the weather. The temperatures shot up to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which was bizarrely warm for a Boston winter. That warmth made the molasses inside the tank start to expand. At the same time, it sped up the fermentation process, which created even more gas and pressure inside. It was the perfect storm. And then, at 12:40 in the afternoon, the tank just gave way. You know, the interesting thing is, people who were there didn't hear one big boom right away. What they described was this terrifying sound, like a machine gun going off, a constant rattle. What they were actually hearing was the sound of the steel rivets, the bolts holding the tank together, popping out one by one under the insane pressure. It was this fatal chain reaction, just pop, 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 pop. And then the whole thing let go. All right, so why was this so much worse than, say, a water tank bursting? I mean, a flood is a flood, right? Wrong. The answer is all about the physics of molasses. It's what turned this from a big, sticky mess into an absolute juggernaut of destruction. Okay, a little science here, but it's super important. Molasses is something called a non-Newtonian fluid. Now, what that basically means is that its thickness changes when you put it under pressure. Think of it like this. If you try to move through it slowly, it's liquid. But if you try to move through it fast, or if it hits you hard, it suddenly gets thicker, more solid. It doesn't just flow around things. It pushes through them with incredible force. And this chart really shows you the difference. Look at this. Molasses is way, way denser than water, about 1.4 times denser. And its viscosity, its thickness, is just off the charts. So when this wave hit, it wasn't like getting hit by water, it was like getting hit by a liquid wall. It wasn't a splash, it was a crushing, demolishing blow. The force was just immense. And you don't have to take my word for it, just look at the damage. This wave hit a fire station and didn't just flood it. It ripped the entire building off its foundation. It slammed into the elevated train tracks nearby with so much force that it snapped the steel support beams like twigs. It even crushed a freight train. This was an unstoppable force. You'd think the worst was over once the wave stopped, right? But for the people caught in it, the horror was really just beginning. The aftermath, it was a slow, sticky, and absolutely terrifying nightmare. First, as that cold Boston air hit the molasses, it started to cool and thicken. It basically turned into a giant field of quicksand. People were trapped, unable to move. Even the rescuers trying to save them would get stuck. The tragedy for the animals was just awful. Dozens of horses, who were so important back then, were stuck so deep in the goo that they had to be put down. And the cleanup? It took months. They had to use fireboats to pump salt water from the harbor to wash it away, and the harbor itself turned brown for half a year. And this event really left a mark on the city, you know? It became part of its folklore. For decades, people who lived in the North End would swear that on a really hot summer day, you could still smell a faint, sweet scent of molasses, like a ghost of the disaster just hanging in the air. So once the immediate chaos was over, the big question wasn't just, how do we clean this up, but who is responsible for this? And that kicked off this huge landmark court case. It was the families of the victims going up against this very powerful corporation. The company's story was something else. They actually tried to claim that the tank had been bombed by anarchists, trying to stop the war effort. It was a wild accusation. But after listening to everyone, the court saw right through it. They threw that story out completely. The final ruling? It was simple: catastrophic structural failure caused by pure, undeniable negligence. And this really says it all, doesn't it? The steel was too thin, they built a bomb, and painted it brown. It's the perfect summary. The company cheaped out, used steel that wasn't thick enough, had zero safety checks, they knew it was a problem, they saw the leaks, and they just painted it brown. They didn't build a tank, they built a bomb. And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. This happened over 100 years ago, but doesn't it feel, weirdly familiar? It makes you think. When you see a crumbling bridge or hear about a company cutting corners on safety, what other bombs are out there just painted over to look okay? What ticking time bombs are we all just walking past every single day without even knowing it?